You're inside the press box. Christian FM Sports presents Inside the Press Box, where we discuss all sports from our favorite high school team to college and pro. Here's your hosts, Paul Tipton and Gary Paris.
Well, hey there, Vero Nation. Thanks for joining us inside the press box. Where have you been? Oh, I guess we haven't been around. It just seems like, Gary, we're just talking to Gary Paris, Paul Tipton, by the way. Thanks for joining us. It feels like it's been about a month since we were back inside the press box. A lot of crazy stuff happening. We thought we were going to play a game on a Friday, and then all of a sudden, Palm Beach Garden says, hey, we got a bunch of players with COVID. Can we move the game? We move it to Wednesday afternoon. We got the game in. We'll talk about that game in a moment. Gosh, Gary, it seems like there's been so much stuff that's happened since the Miami game when we did our last podcast.
It really does. It seems like that game was a long time ago. And in between that, you've had I've had a JV game and I've had a UCF game and on the road and all. I'm going, wow, we were doing this podcast on our last game, and I'm thinking, how long ago was that? It just was last week, but it was.
It's been a couple of weeks since we did the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe got some things to catch up on. I mean, goodness, our respective college teams have gotten underway since then, and you've done a couple of UCF broadcasts since we've done this last podcast. But let's start first and foremost with our Fighting Indians. They finally got the game in on Wednesday afternoon, 5:00 kickoff, which, by the way, not a fan of.
Oh, no.
I know we had to get the game in. I appreciate them getting the game in because we'll talk about that. How important will that be for us down the road? I think it could be critical.
Also, Paul, we want to thank all the fans that were there. We had a really
you're right.
good crowd. Not our normal Friday night crowd, but a very respectable, good crowd there on Wednesday afternoon for a 5:00 kickoff.
Yeah, it was. And as you would expect, I mean, at kickoff, it was a decent crowd. As we got closer to halftime, it started to fill in a whole lot more. And so, kudos to Vero Nation for showing up on a Wednesday. I get it. Hey, it's out of the routine of things. And just like we talk about players and coaches being a part of a routine, fan base is too. And so thanks, Vero Nation, for showing up for this ball game because it certainly helped. Our boys, got off to a really good start, Gary. We went first 3 possessions. We got into the end zone all 3 times. We finished the game 26-11 over Palm Beach Gardens. Okay, that said, let's break this down a little bit. 71 plays, offensively speaking, 494 yards. And start with Tyler. Had a pretty good productive night. He threw for 302 yards, completed 24 passes off of 34 attempts, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
He looked like the Tyler that we always knew. He was there. You know what I mean? He's gotten better than he was last year. I was impressed with his reads. I was impressed with the way he threw the ball. He was like in command of his game on the field. And again, I really was impressed with the way he played the ball game again. And I just apologize for my phone for going off.
You'd think after all these years that he would learn.
Off.
He would learn. But no. I really was impressed. His total command of the field. I mean, he read the receivers right. He read the plays right. He read their coverage. He did such a good job of finding what defenses. Him and Lenny were in sync together in that game a lot during that game. And it was a really, we were our own worst enemy at times because we had the turnovers and we had, they didn't score a offensive touchdown against our defense. Nope. A 25-yard field goal.
Yes.
And then it was a scoop and score off a punt.
Yes. And that was their scoring of the game.
A punt fumble, I should say.
A punt fumble, yes. And so our defense really does a great job again. And our offense had some particular moments where we threw an interception or
we had interception.
Away,
we had a couple of turnover on downs and whatnot, which I don't get too worried about that, Gary, just because Coach Jay, I mean, he likes to be aggressive. And that's just his nature. And he feels like, look, if it's 2 or 3 yards, we ought to be able to get that. If we can't, well, then shame on us. Yeah, that's just kind of how he feels.
The mark of a good team is when you have these turnovers, your ability to bounce back and not to you don't panic. You have a turnover, you regroup. Coach gets everybody on the side, offensively or defensively. Bill Model will pull his side apart, and Coach Jankowski will get his, and the lineman will get theirs. And they discuss things. They really work those things out. They never let it. They don't panic. They come back. They do a great job of adjusting. At halftime, our coaches do a good job of adjusting. When we take a turnover, Lenny wants to know what happened. He'll find out from his assistant coaches, and he'll find out from the quarterback what he saw, the receiver, if the receiver runs a bad route or if the receiver falls down or whatever. But that's what makes Vero Beach really a good, and it's resilience to be able to bounce back.
Agreed. And it was a good game. I mean, 26-11. I mean, you're 2-0. And you had a bye week there, so the guys are able to kind of get rested up and whatnot. I kind of feel a little bit for Palm Beach Gardens because they had to turn around and play a game on Saturday. I didn't even check to see what the outcome was of that, but kudos to them for working this out and let's get the game in. And for Vero Beach, they were able to run through their particular options for offense and defense and get the work in and got rewarded with a win, 26-11. Isaiah Roberts, honestly, Gary, I felt like, he scored the first touchdown for us, but I did not realize till I was really looking at the stats, like he really had a sneaky good game. 8 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. I didn't realize that.
You know what? When I saw the stats, I'm like you. I went, wow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And he has become a go-to guy.
Yep.
And I think that, anybody that's a receiver on this court will be able to catch balls because if you're open, he's going to find you our quarterback.
That's true.
And,
that is true.
And I really, Isaiah has been a guy. I liked him in the spring,
and
I've liked him during the summer practices and the fall practices. He's just a good athlete.
Yeah, and then, of course, Jonathan Hillsman, both in, catching the ball, running the ball, had an extremely productive night. In fact, he was our Scott Sporting Goods Offensive Player of the game. 7 catches, 73 yards. He ran the ball 14 times for 131.
He is such a dual threat for this offense. Not often you get a running back that can catch the ball as well as he does coming out of the backfield. He does a great job when we run the little wheel routes or we run a post down, putting him in the game out of the backfield where he catches the balls down the middle. He does a great job. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. He's got soft hands. He's only a sophomore. And he got into the weight room. He did a great job. And I've been really a good athlete, been a great contribution, and having Osby with him on the as a dual threat running back, big guys, fast guys too. So it's a big plus.
All right, so we get to put this one to bed now, Gary, and we put our attention now to our next opponent, which is going to be Westwood, and this is going to be a matchup of undefeated teams. Westwood's coming in 3-0, and They started off the very first game. They win 36-0. Then the last 2 ball games been much closer. So it's hard, really for me. It's been hard to figure out what kind of team are we going to be looking at.
Playing against an undefeated team. That's how you got to look at it. You look at a team that played probably a weaker team in the beginning, and they were able to put a bunch of points on the board, and turnovers, whatever may have happened. But the last 2 games, they've had played up against some good competition. But they won. That's how you look at it. I evaluate a team is not so much the score, is they won. And you're looking at teams that find a way to win. You look at the Seminole game against Treasure Coast. So what was it? You were telling me the yardage and then the scores.
Yeah, the score was 14-9.
Yeah, and he had tons of yardage.
And they had tons of yardage, and it's just like, wow, what do you make out of that game? I mean, it's like a bend but don't break defense.
And that's the way I look at Westwood.
Yeah.
Very competitive, very good. They have good athletes. They're going to be they're 3-0. They want to play us. They want to play us bad, and they want to come in here and I tell you what, it helps them. In this open enrollment era, you can beat Vero Beach from the other schools of the other conferences or the other counties.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I tell you what, that helps. That helps their open enrollment, like kids wanting to come in to play football for them.
I'll tell you what also really helps us here too, Gary, is the fact that we got this game in against Gardens, because with the whole strength of schedule and how the points are accumulated for the playoffs now, I mean, look. Right now, you got to be looking at, Treasure Coast, beat a very formidable opponent in Seminole. So they have to be considered one of the front runners right now to lead the district. So could it come down? Probably might come down to, again, Vero Beach and Treasure Coast vying for the district title.
Well, they also beat Osceola.
Right.
They also beat Tampa Jesuit.
Right.
I mean, they're this strong. They're actually ahead of us in the points because of who they played so far.
Right. So the whole point system could be something that we have to really look to, because look, if you don't win your district title, then you come in as a wild card or an at-large berth, and your points will determine where you sit in the seeding of the bracket. It also determines, even if you do win the district, it could determine whether or not you're the first seed to the fourth seed. So getting this game against Gardens, I think, could be crucial.
I thought it was huge because I thought it was good for Palm Beach Gardens because they're going to get points.
Right.
Because they played a Vero Beach team.
Yep.
Playing Westwood this week is important because their strength of schedule maybe gets stronger and stronger.
Yep.
And they're if they were in the playoffs last year, I can't remember if they were or not. But
I don't think so. But
this year, it helps them if they get in. It helps their strength of schedule. It helps us.
Absolutely does. So that sets us up for this week. We got Westwood at the Citrus Bowl Friday night. At least that's what we think. Right now, it's Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff. Our coverage will begin at 6 p.m. with Countdown to Kickoff presented by Cap's Pizza. Want to thank you for joining us inside the press box. Gary Parris, Paul Tipton. As always, go Indians.
Thanks for joining us inside the press box. For more, go to ChristianFM.com.